Hello and welcome to Precon Decon, the video series where I deconstruct the pre-constructed decks of Magic the Gathering's history. In this video I'm going to start looking at Theros Beyond Death, and this is the last kind of expansion set that actually had Planeswalker decks. After this we've just got Core 2021 and then that's it, so we really don't have many of these decks left. So in Theros Beyond Death, we're going to start off by looking at Elspeth, Undaunted Hero, which is a mono-white deck. Interestingly, I mean, interesting might be a strong word, a bit of trivia, let's say that, is this the only mono-color deck that's not a core set Planeswalker deck, if that makes sense. So there we go, it stands out a little bit there, and it actually plays quite nicely into one of the themes of the deck. So let's take a look at the deck list. 23 creatures, 5 instants, 6 enchantments, 25 land, and a single planeswalker, obviously, and mana curve off the side there. So let's just dive in and start looking at it. Right, so Elspeth, Undaunted Hero. 2 and triple white for a 5 loyalty planeswalker, so that's actually pretty good. 5 mana for 5 loyalty. Obviously she is triple white though, so that kind of limits what kind of deck she can go into. Right, so her +2 is put a +1/+1 counter on each of up to 2 target creatures. That's okay. You know, just standard kind of white planeswalker ability, just put counters on things. It's okay. Her -2 is, I'm not super impressed by it. Search your library and or graveyard for a card named Sunlit Hoplite and put it onto the battlefield. If you search your library this way, shuffle it. Sunlit Hoplite is one of her signature cards. We'll see it in the next slide. It's okay, as we'll see, as a creature. And it does actually have synergies with Elspeth, so this is actually a nice way. It's actually her buddy card, so it's a nice way to actually guarantee you get the buddy out with the matching planeswalker. So it's actually, you know, not terrible, actually, thinking about it. And then her -8, until end turn, creature you control get flying and +X, where X is your devotion to white. So it's Theros, we have devotion again, which is a nice mechanic. So at the very, very least, this gives... well, I was going to say +3/+3 because obviously Elspeth herself's got triple white. But if you've got at least a creature out, right, that's going to be at least another +1/+1 because, you know, it's going to have at least one white mana symbol, I suppose. No, there's a few token creatures, ignore me. Anyway, at the very minimum, it's +3/+3 and flying. So yeah, again, big board wide buff and evasion, standard sort of planeswalker ultimate, nice and straightforward. Yeah, Elspeth's okay, I think. It's okay. She's okay. And then her signature cards. So 2 Elspeth's Devotee, 2 in double white for a 3/3. The double white is actually really nice because it helps with the devotion effects in the deck. 3/3, and when it ends the battlefield, search your library or graveyard for Elspeth, Undaunted Hero, blah, blah. So again, really sort of boring, kind of straightforward. I mean, it's a creature, it adds to the board, I suppose, which in some way makes it better than other search spells. It's okay. It's okay, isn't it? And then obviously this being 4, you search up Elspeth, and then ideally you cast Elspeth next turn, so that's okay. 3 Eidolon of Inspiration, 1 and double white for a 2/2. At the beginning of combat on your turn, target creature you control gets +2/+0 to end turn. This is actually okay. I think this is pretty good to give a free +2/+0 buff. Each combat is quite nice. I think that's really nice. There's 3 of these. Yeah, that's fairly solid. And then this is the card that Elspeth searches for, the Sunlit Hoplite. 1 white for a 2/1. As long as it's your turn, Sunlit Hoplite has first strike, and it gets +1/+0 as long as you control an Elspeth Planeswalker. So it is nice actually that Elspeth can search up the buddy card. It's, you know, ideally it'd be nice if all the other planeswalkers had you know, something like this where they could search up their buddy and then you definitely get the boost. So yeah, and the fact that this buddy is at common level, it's not like uncommon, it's not taking up like a valuable uncommon slot. This is okay. This is acceptable as you know, one of these buddies, I think. Moving on to the rest of the deck. So we have Taranika, a Crowan veteran. So 1 and double white for a 3/3 vigilance. So just really solid stats off the bat. When a Taranika, a Crowan veteran, attacks, untap another target creature you control until end turn. It has base power and toughness 4/4 and gains indestructible. Really, really solid effect actually. And there's obviously a load of creatures in the deck that really benefit from just becoming an indestructible 4/4. Yeah, really, really great. I don't think you've got anything that taps down, so you're not going to get the benefit from the untap. But like, you know, just because you can't use one half of the ability doesn't mean it's really solid. So yeah, I really like Taranika. The fact she's only 3 mana, I think, is an absolute steal. Yeah, really, really great creature. Really like her. We have Daxos, Blessed by the Sun, double white for a 2/X. He is a enchantment creature, so we got those back in Theros Beyond Death. He's got the most loaded type line ever, legendary enchantment creature demigod. Like, that text is getting really small to fit that all on there. So his toughness is equal to your devotion to white, so at the very minimum 2, because obviously he counts himself. Whenever another creature you control enters the battlefield or dies, you gain 1 life. Yep, he's just like buff Soul Warden, isn't he? Which is absolutely fine, and obviously he can get pretty huge with his ability. So yeah, Daxos is again all right. Yeah. You got 4 Leonin of the Lost Pride, 1 and a white for a 3/1. When it dies, you exile a type card in an opponent's graveyard. This is actually pretty big if you play it against the other deck we're going to look at from Theros, the Ashiok deck, because that deck has a whole thing about the escape cards, like casting them from your graveyard. So if you can exile them, that's actually pretty good. And having 4 of these is just nice for consistency, and it's a 3/1. So yeah, really nice aggressive card with a bit of tech if you play the decks against each other. We've got 2 Archon of Falling Stars, 4 and double white for a 4/4 flying. When it dies, you can return an enchantment card from your graveyard to the battlefield. So the fact it goes straight back onto the battlefield is nice. It is a really great ability. It's not doing too much in this deck, personally, I don't think, just because there's just not a great selection of enchantments on. So you've got like some auras, and you've got some enchantment creatures. Dax, I think you've got another enchantment creature. You definitely got Daxos. Yeah, so like, I mean, it's still a big flyer, obviously, but just because the ability is a bit niche doesn't mean it's a bad card. It's still a big flyer. It's still like an air elemental. But yeah, it's not living up to its full potential in this deck. It's not cheating out like a really big like enchantment creature or something. But it's still like obviously a great ability. We've got 2 Hero of the Winds, 3 and a white for a 1/4 fly. Whenever you cast a spell that targets Hero of the Winds, creatures you control get +1/+0 to turn. So last time we were in Theros, we had the heroic ability, which is whenever you target the creature with a spell, it gets some sort of benefit, which is usually +1/+1 counters, but it could be some other effect as well. So in Beyond Death, heroic wasn't kind of keyworded, but it was kind of the red-white archetype, because you had a bunch of these like Hero of the X, which pretty much all had this ability, like if you cast a spell that targets it, either it gets either it gets a power boost or it gives all your creatures a power boost. So there were only about, I think, maybe 3-4 of them, I think. So it wasn't, but it was the red white draft archetype essentially. But yeah, this is obviously okay. You do have a few buff spells in the deck, and it turning every buff spell into like a board wide boost is obviously pretty okay. So yeah, this is all right. And then 4 Daybreak Chimera. So I really like this 4 of these as well. Again, just for consistency, it's really nice. So 3 and double white for a 3/3. It costs X less to cast, where X is your devotion to white, and yes, 3/3 flyer. So if you get this down for only 2 mana, obviously that's a really great deal. Honestly, I think you only need to drop the cost by 1, and it's basically fine, because then it's like Phantom Monster, like 4 mana for a 3/3 flyer. And I don't think it'd be hard to drop the cost of it at all, because obviously you're playing mono white. You've got a lot of creatures with with white mana pips in the cost. So yeah, I think really easy to get this down for really cheap. Quite a lot of evasive creatures in the deck, actually, thinking about it. Right, so a bunch of buffs. So we've got 3 Karametra's Blessing, so 1 white mana. Type creature gets +2/+2 to end a turn. If it's an enchanted creature or an enchantment creature, it also gets hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. So, like I say, you don't. Those Indomitables at the end there are basically the only auras to put on your own things. Enchantment creatures that we've discussed, we actually only had Daxos. I thought there was one more, but there wasn't. So again, the second ability of this is not, again, living up to its potential like the Archon. So I think most of the time this is just going to be 1 white mana for like +2/+2, which is like barely worth a card in my opinion. It's still a big, it's still a buff. It's still instant speed. It's still only 1 mana. It's cheap. It can still obviously like change a combat kind of, if a creature of yours like lives, or it punches up and kills another enemy creature. It's still okay, but again, I just don't think like living up to its best potential in this deck, just because that second ability is quite niche in here, given like what we've got. We've got 2 Phalanx Tactics. Now this is pretty great. So 1 white, type creature you control gets +2/+1 to end turn, and all your other creatures get +1/+1 to end turn. So yeah, this is really nice. Obviously on the Hero of the Winds, because then it is essentially giving you a whole board +2/+1 for only like 2 mana instant speed, which is fairly good. Yeah, this is just, I think, really solid. I really like this. This is not much more to say about it. It's just really good, I think. Really nice. Definitely better than the Karametra's Blessing, but it's uncommon. It's more expensive, so it's not a fair comparison, probably. And then 3 Indomitable Will, 1 and a white for an aura with flash, goes on a creature. The fact it's got flash means it can serve as a combat trick, which is always nice. Enchanted creature gets +1/+2, so it's holy strength with flash, so which is still okay. And then obviously then it comes out. It's an aura, gives the benefit with Karametra's blessing, and it's an extra pip of white mana on the board for devotion, so it's all right. And then 3 Dreadful Apathy. This is about as close as we've got to removal in the deck. 2 and a white. Aura goes on a creature. It can't attack or block, and you can spend 2 and a white to exile the enchanted creature. Yeah, this is okay. So you put it on a big creature that get it out of the way, and then later on in a turn, if you've got 3 mana to spend, then you can just like deal with it permanently. So yeah, this is okay. Obviously it's a bit slow and clunky as removal, but it's the best you've got. Actually, yeah, and then this goes into your graveyard, and then you could actually use Archon of Falling Stars to get it back and go straight back into play. Maybe I'm really trying to find something for Archon of Falling Stars to do in this deck. But it's it's not terrible, is it? And then 25 planes, which I feel is a little too much, just because don't have like the biggest mana curve in this deck, so probably could have got away with like 24, maybe even 23, and just like another couple of cards. But yeah, whatever. So let's talk about what could have been. So some really nice choices, I think, that could have been in this, from the set that could have been in here. So Reverend Hoplite, I think, would have been quite nice. So 4 and a white for a 1/2. When it enters the battlefield, you create a number of 1/1 white human soldier creature tokens that give you devotion to white. I got mixed up. I thought this was in the deck. That's why I was talking about creature tokens when I was looking at Elspeth's ultimate ability. There was nothing actually there that made tokens, was there? I thought this was in the deck, in the main deck, not something I'd suggested. But anyway, yeah, this I think has the potential. It comes down and makes a whole bunch of creature tokens. Say you're playing mono white, so your devotion to white should be pretty high. I think you probably want to get at least 3 out of this, and then that would be a pretty good deal, I think. And then obviously you've got like the Hero of the Winds and like the Phalanx formation that can buff them up. So yeah, that could be okay. As an alternate rare, I thought Elspeth Conquers Death could be pretty fun, because sagas are just super fun, aren't they? So 3 in double white. Chapter 1 is exile a permanent an opponent controls with mana value 3 or greater, which is, I mean, right off the bat, that's like quite strong anyway, just to exile something. And then Chapter 2 is non-creature spells your opponent cast cost 2 more to cast until your next turn, so that taxes them. That's quite nice. And then finally, Chapter 3, return a creature or planeswalker card from your graveyard to the battlefield and put a +1/+1 counter on it, or an extra loyalty counter on it. So yeah, if you timed this really nicely, I suppose you could have Elspeth pop her ultimate. If somehow the game's not over, and then this hits Chapter 3, and then she comes back and she's got the extra loyalty counter. I don't know, that'd be kind of fun. And also, I think just including sagas in a deck would be fun anyway, because I think that's such a fun card type. And then also Hero of the Pride. This is just a smaller Hero of the Winds. 1 to white for a 2/2. Whenever you cast a spell that targets it, it gets +1. All your creatures get +1/+0 to end of turn. So again, that would be fun as spells. It would go better if you obviously had the tokens you're going kind of wide. But yeah, overall, I think it's like a fairly competently put together like white weenie deck, which is, I feel like, something we've not had like for a good while. Maybe I don't know. But yeah, it feels okay. Yeah, there's a few tweaks I would have made to it, but overall I think it's like fairly solid. It's not too exciting, but I think it's just solid. It's nice. There's a lot of play sets actually, so it feels like it has a lot of consistency. So I think it would play pretty well. But I'd love to know what other people think about this deck. If you have any thoughts or stories or comments, opinions about this deck or any of the cards in it, stick a comment below. I'll give those a read. We're going to move on now to the second Theros Beyond Death deck, which I think is a lot more interesting, honestly. So quite excited to talk about that one, but I'll see you for that next time. But until then, thanks for watching and listening, and have a great day.